So welcome to the historic groundbreaking ceremony for the Lakespen Industrial Park, a transformative development that signals a new chapter for industrial innovation, logistics expansion, and growth for Jamaica, and a defining moment for Sygnus. Another round of applause, please. You see, I like that. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lakespen Industrial Park, spanning 55.4 acres, speaks to the forward-thinking and innovative commitment of the Sygnus Capital Group, the Caribbean leader in alternative investments, committed to accelerating economic growth across the region using innovative and creative financing solutions. And not only will it be able to provide a number of key opportunities for industrial and commercial growth, but importantly, growth for our people, who will not only gain employment, but who will be empowered as we participate in the nation's ongoing expansion. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we see today, Jamaica remains open for business as we build forward stronger.
My name is David Cummings. I am the Vice President and Head of Real Estate and Project Finance at the Sygnus Group. And it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all here this morning to Cow Park, Lawrence Field, Lakespen in St. Catherine. I'd like to share three things with you this morning. First, I will share a little bit about who we at Sygnus Real Estate Finance are. Secondly, I will share the project details with you. And finally, how Hurricane Melissa served to accelerate this groundbreaking ceremony. Let me start by highlighting that the Sygnus Group is a Caribbean-based alternative investment firm providing a diverse set of clients with customized and innovatively financed designed financial solutions across a series of interconnected investment banking and investment management business lines. We have emerged as the leader in the Caribbean alternative investment space with a platform that offers our clients investments and financial solutions in the alternative investment asset classes of private credit, real estate, private equity, as well as impact investing. Sygnus Real Estate Finance, or SRF in short, has as its mandate the provision of flexible capital to unlock the value of real estate across the region, whilst delivering risk-adjusted returns for our investors and shareholders. Yes, we are a publicly traded entity, duly listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. What do we mean by flexible capital? Simply put, Sygnus Real Estate Finance takes a careful look at every real estate opportunity and will deploy either equity or debt appropriately structured to bring a project to life, which in many instances would not necessarily measure up to the traditional conditions required by a commercial bank. As a measure of our track record of success, as released in our recent earnings call, we can highlight the over 18 billion Jamaican dollars in capital deployed since our inception in 2019. We can highlight our annual return on equity of 17.5% and our 2025 audited net profit of 787 million Jamaican dollars for the just concluded fiscal year, which culminated in August. Included and inherent in these results are the successful 240,000 square foot, One Belmont, Class A commercial building on Belmont Road, as well as our industrial build-to-suit on Spanish Town Road, delivered for IMCO, the local distributor for the world-renowned Caterpillar brand of industrial equipment. So, in line with our focus on unlocking value in real estate, we purchased this property in March 2020. And after participating in a master plan for the wider area with a major international architectural and engineering entity, we subsequently sought the services of a renowned international industrial consultancy firm out of Washington, D.C., to conduct a comprehensive feasibility study on our behalf. Amongst other things, that study concluded that there was over 1 million square feet of demand for industrial warehousing space in the local market. This, of course, is separate and apart from the major entities that had the capacity and the capital to curate their own industrial renewal, such as Grace, Caramed, Wysinco, etc., which have all done so. So, our analysis led to the creation of an industrial subdivision with service lots to be sold to entities seeking land for their industrial or commercial operations. Just like with our previous projects, we assembled a formidable team of professionals, which included Spade as the architects, urban planners, GDM Associates as the project manager and owner's engineer, Blue Vein as our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing consultants, FCS consultants as our civil and structural engineers, Chardon Hay and his CPM consultants team as our quantity surveyors, AGS Surveying as the land surveyor, and of course, the China Harbor Engineering Company as the contractor. The project itself is designed on 55 acres in total, with 46.4 of the acreage being saleable by the time you subtract for the roads and other infrastructure, leaving us with 34 service lots, ranging between 1 and 3 acres. Some of the unique development features include a 2.4 meter or 8 feet, depending on your weights and measures, a 2.4 meter tall boundary wall with anti-climb security spikes on top to make this a secure, gated industrial park. The gated park will have surveillance cameras throughout the common areas, as well as a rapid response armed security team on site, housed in a purpose-built dedicated security building, as well as a guardhouse to man the entry and exit gates. These gates are, of course, appropriately designed to accommodate the anticipated multiple simultaneous tractor trailers hauling 40-foot containers that will inevitably traverse through these gates on a daily basis. Another important design feature will be an underground electrical distribution system, which, as Hurricane Melissa has just shown us, will become a distinct business continuity advantage for those businesses housed here. Let me hasten to add that this was always a feature of our design and is not merely a reaction to what the recent Category 5 hurricane has shown us. Other features of our design include a 70,000-gallon reserve water tank, 2 large retention ponds deliberately designed to manage the calculated rainfall and stormwater, We'll have paved roads, sidewalks adorned with palm trees and pui trees, and park benches for persons to sit and enjoy the pui trees when they inevitably bloom. The total development cost for this project is in excess of 20 million United States dollars, and China Harbor will be employing approximately 100 persons during the project. So, if you are a developer, a manufacturer, a distributor, or any entity seeking the opportunity to recapitalize, renew, retool, or expand your business in a secure, resilient, and business continuity focused industrial park, look no further than the Lakespen Industrial Park. With respect to the project milestones, to date, we have already executed the contract with China Harbor, received our regulatory subdivision approvals, and here we are now ahead of our schedule with the groundbreaking ceremony. We are anticipating the handover of lots to purchasers in the summer of 2027. This ceremony, and indeed the start of this project, was not scheduled until the beginning of 2026. Shortly after the passage of Hurricane Melissa, we heard the Prime Minister make several statements, two of which resonated with us. One statement was for the rest of Jamaica to ramp up their productivity to make up for the inevitable shortfall in the West. The second statement from the Prime Minister was for new developments to consider placing utilities underground. As it stood, our project addressed both of these calls, and as a result, and in a true spirit of public-private partnership, and with the assistance of the investment facilitation team at JAMPRO, as well as Ministers Hill and Vaz and P.S. Williams, we were able to accelerate our way through the final regulatory hurdles to land us here this morning. This project will mean immediate employment and productivity. This project means designed resilience. Two calls, one word: action. Whilst he was attending the recent G20 conference in South Africa, we also heard the Prime Minister tell Bloomberg News that it will take a blend of resources to rebuild Jamaica after the passage of Hurricane Melissa. And no doubt that blend will likely include partnerships for the efficient deployment of capital. Of course, if the opportunity exists for us to play a transparent role in such endeavors, we stand ready. The fact is that with this project, we are making our own contribution to the development of this area of Lakespen. And together with our fellow development neighbors, this investment will serve to attract even further investment in the area, foster more job creation, and serve as a general overall economic boost for the local communities. Finally, as we turn this first shovel of earth, we do more than begin construction. We declare our shared belief in what collectively we can achieve. This industrial park will be a place where ideas are transformed into opportunity, where local and foreign entities and talent will fuel their ambition, and where new partnerships will take root and flourish. Let today stand as a reminder that progress is not built by chance, but by people willing to imagine something better and work together to make it real. On behalf of Sygnus Real Estate Finance, let me welcome all of you to the groundbreaking ceremony for the Lakespen Industrial Park as we continue to unlock value in real estate.
Ladies and gentlemen, morning and welcome to another groundbreaking by Sygnus. It seems like Sygnus always like to bring goodies in December. This is our second or third groundbreaking in December. So David Ike is going to ask you to start breaking ground every quarter. You know it's good for that, right? Ladies and gentlemen, today we stand on 55 acres of possibilities. Lakespen Industrial Park. Lakespen Industrial Park, as David said, will be a transformational project. It will be one of these projects that change the very state of the logistic landscape in Jamaica. Not because it might be the largest, but because of what we are doing, the type of infrastructure that we are putting in place, the quality of the development that we are going to facilitate. And all of this fits into the standard that Sygnus has established for itself. Bigger than that, though, is the fact that we are making this investment because Sygnus believe that Jamaica should actually lead and champion the logistic infrastructure space in the Caribbean. Hurricane Melissa shake up a lot of things in the West, and we are very sympathetic to that. But I stand here today to say that it did not shake the confidence that Sygnus and our investors has in Jamaica and our opportunities. Let me take you back to 2016, just for a minute. In 2016, when we founded Sygnus, and I think a few ministers here know the journey, and my co-founders also know the journey. One of the things that we did was to challenge ourselves to a few things. And the reason why we did that was because we observed Jamaica, the wider Caribbean, that these were places brimming with opportunities, a lot of opportunities. Being in the bank, we saw a lot of them. However, these opportunities were constrained because we only had, at the time, traditional financing models. We only had traditional financing models. We did not have alternative investment that allow capital to be accessed at scale in creative, innovative ways, whether it's private equity, private debt, real estate investment, and I'll talk a little bit about impact strategy. You did not have that. So the first challenge of Sygnus was to figure out how do we mobilize capital from pension funds and other investors into vehicles like Sygnus Real Estate Finance that can then take long-term view and invest in Jamaica. And I think we have achieved that today. Lakespen is testament to that. This $20 million investment represent Sygnus ideas about how do you unlock capital, how do you unlock value in real estate in particular to drive growth and wealth. And even more than that, how do we do it in a resilient and sustainable way? And that is always our goal. How do you replicate things over and over again such that it can be efficient, scalable, and deliver value? And that's what we are doing in all of our projects. Whether it's the One Belmont project, the beautiful building on One Belmont Road, whether it's the Spanish Penwood project, and now the Lakespen project. We are investing so that we can drive value and contribute to the development of Jamaica. And most honorably, you'll be very pleased that we have Lakespen breaking ground on today, but our real estate alone, real estate investment pipeline is over $300 million US that we are going to execute on over the next, 3 to 4 years. And these are live projects that the real estate team is working diligently on. We are challenging ourselves to actually take advantage of the opportunities that Jamaica present. The same thing, taking you back. One of the things that Sygnus challenge ourselves to do is to really bridge the gap such that capital can flow frictionlessly into these opportunities. One of the other things that as Sygnus founder, we challenge ourselves to do was to ensure that we invest in a responsible way, we invest with strong governance framework, and we invest that we are great stewardship of investor capital. Why is that important? That is important for two main reasons. The first reason is this: we manage a lot of pension fund money. A lot of pensioners depend on Sygnus to deliver value and be great stewardship of money. The other reason is this, and a lot of people won't necessarily understand this: strong governance. The goal of Sygnus is to become the leading alternative investment manager in the Caribbean, which I believe at over 700 million US dedicated to alternative investment today, and soon to be $1 billion, I think we have achieved that goal. However, that's not enough. We are seeing opportunities every day. I can tell you, the Sygnus platform, from our operations in Puerto Rico to Jamaica to St. Lucia and, well, Miami now, we have probably $1 billion of opportunities. So we don't have enough dry powder. However, because we have established a platform that can invest in private equity, private credit, real estate, and impact, and overlay that with strong governance and a strong track record to which David spoke to, we are now able to do something that not many investment company in Jamaica has achieved, and probably none or maybe one alternative investment manager has achieved. We are able to crowd in international capital, and that is the trick that we need to do in order to become a significant player that actually disrupt the very ecosystem of the financial services sector, such that we are doing larger projects using equity and alternative financing. We have to attract capital from the international players. And I'm very pleased to say today, Sygnus has managed to attract significant amount of capital from family offices in US, the multilaterals, and regional investors. And that speaks test. And the good news about all of that is, at the moment, about 40% of the money that we deploy is invested in Jamaica. Let me touch a little bit on impact. And it is very important within the context of Hurricane Melissa and the disruption that it has caused. Sometimes people argue that everything that you invest in the developed country is impact. But if you don't measure it, measure, and redefine your strategy, then it's not really, you don't get it right. So, under Sygnus Impact Strategy, we are managing the largest dedicated climate and economic resilience fund in the Caribbean, called CCRF, or the Caribbean Community Economic Resilience Fund. That's a 135 million fund that is dedicated to impact investing and climate. And some of the sectors we are deploying capital in include sustainable housing, renewable energy, infrastructure, access to financing. We can never forget about access to financing, as well as the blue economy. We are the only fund that is up and running today that is deploying in a deliberate way capital in impact, areas that are impactful. When we deploy money in those areas, the outcome is 10x. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but, but it's significant. Anyway, the point I want to make is this. With the passage of Melissa, the need for dedicated strategies around impact becomes more significant. And it is going to take a lot of collaboration and partnership to really redevelop at the velocity that is required to let Jamaica recover. Sygnus, through our various alternative investment funds, stand ready to work with the government and private sector partners. The last point I would like to make is always probably the most important point as an investment fund manager. We deploy capital on behalf of investors and we search for opportunities. But at the same time, we need investors, and investors in Jamaica in particular, to be very deliberate about participating in the alternative investment market. This is a market that Sygnus deliberately went out to create so that we can create value for everyone and wealth for all. We need pension funds, development agencies, local development banks, individuals to have a very deliberate strategy around allocating investment, allocating capital to alternative investment. Whether you have to do this. You have to do this because alternative investors are patient investors. We make impactful investment because we are on the ground with the asset, with the client, aligning our investment strategy with their goal to protect your money and to ensure that we generate great return. So you have to have a deliberate strategy to allocate to alternative investment. Ladies and gentlemen, Lakespen Industrial Park is more than an investment to us. It is a symbol of our confidence in Jamaica's future and our capabilities to deliver long-term value for our investors and the society in general. That's what it symbolizes to us. In closing, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who have made this a splendid occasion. As I said, Sygnus like to break ground in December. I don't know, David, you'll have to say if next December we're going to break ground again. Before that? Okay, all right. And I also like to thank our trusted partners, our investors in particular, who have really put the faith in Sygnus to allow us to truly build the alternative investment space in the Caribbean. And finally, I always say this in all of my speaking, whether internally or otherwise. I have the privilege, a very enviable one, to lead the most talented team in the market. And rest assured, under our stewardship, we will continue to invest in Jamaica and the wider Caribbean, and we will continue to apply strong governance and risk management to manage the money of our investors and deliver value. Value like what we're talking about today. Thank you very much.
I'm picking out Mrs. Shulette Cox because she's one of 20 agencies, but the lead one that holds businesses' hands, sometimes literally, and walk them from agency to agency, or call the minister, call her minister and say call the minister, and get them in place. But I also name her because as one of 20 of the agencies in my ministry, when the Prime Minister in early November said, look, Auburn, you and your ministry must get businesses back up. And that time, 2 days after the hurricane, we couldn't cross some streets. We have to drive around and get there. I came back and I said to my agency heads, you guys have masters. Many of them have PhDs. You have big businesses you're running on the agencies. We, you, under the permanent secretary and myself, will become the working group, not some study group, the working group to get back our businesses up. And they have been doing that. Dr. Cliff Riley, I asked to lead that charge. And so when you see us, or you don't see me in my office, and with a picture, with a cap somewhere in Westmoreland or Trelawney, that's what we do these days. But also, I know Barris is ahead on my list, but Barris, if you don't mind, I'm going to say, I remember when you and Gassan, Mr. Gassan Azan, came to Minister Shaw's office. I was his senior advisor then. And the proposal was made, 2 of you there, and I know how lonely it is at those times when you're starting a business. But he had a good supporter, a good investor, and he and you brought in other great investors, and we were able to give the permission and so on that was needed at the time. Congratulations for what you guys have achieved. And we sit here today, and of course, Beresford, we heard much of where you're looking. You're not looking, I mean, David may have to stay with the present and a little bit of the past to get the real estate up, but you're gone. You're gone to the future, which is what we want to see in Jamaica. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, of course, Mr. Masado, who I know from JPS days. It's a pleasure to join you today for the groundbreaking of the Sygnus Lakespen Industrial Park. You have another name for it, Cow Park, I think you call it, at the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, and we're at Cow Park right here. But as the Minister for Jamaica's Business Ministry, today we celebrate an opportunity to build a much stronger, better, and more resilient Jamaica into a different and better future. I know we've just come through Melissa. I have been to every parish and to some of the parishes that are not named. But let me tell you something, that devastation is severe. You go to Parity, strong. But you know, for every person I talk to, lots of men and women on the ground, they end the conversation and say, thank God we have life. There is that note of optimism that even Melissa can't kill. And I'm happy to see that. We're tasked with transforming Jamaica's industrial and indeed all built spaces in the process, empower our private sector businesses, including our contractors, to compete regionally and eventually globally. You hear Beresford carry that message so clearly. Let us thank Sygnus Real Estate Finance, established in 2016, soon after the Andrew Holness administration took charge of Jamaica and its economy, for its vision to drive economic growth across the Caribbean, and building innovation and the development of really modern commercial and living spaces in Jamaica is evident in projects like One Belmont, which is a fabulous building, beautiful. Penwood, and now the 55.4 acres right here at the Lakespen Industrial Park, with 34 service lots to be sold. This project has already attracted strong interest from local and foreign investors, including PriceSmart. PriceSmart, Shulet's, and my favorite foreign investor, depending on the week you catch us, because they're always coming in and looking to do additional things, and we're happy for that. The Lakespen Industrial Park is a 15 million, that's 2.4 billion Jamaican dollars, development, 15 billion US, of course, with 547,000 US dollars, 87 million already invested in design and initial construction. This is a state-of-the-art infrastructure project, backed by a design-build contract with China Harbour Engineering Company, with regulatory approvals on track and lots handover planned for June 2027. The regulatory approvals, JAMPRO, and the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce do take some credit, quite a bit of credit, for helping them get through all of these. The development represents a strategic investment in Jamaica's industrial future. Notice we're talking a lot about the future, because that's where we're going. More than its size or features, this project showcases the collaboration and drive of Jamaican companies, workers, and investors, showing that Jamaica is stable, is open and welcoming for high-quality investment in our economy. I'm pleased to report the substantial assistance that my ministry and some of our agencies have given. And we, as you are aware, Jamaica has secured 6.7 billion package. Now, let me tell you, securing. We didn't take out any paper and go ask for money. Because of the tremendously outstanding, internationally recognized performance of the Andrew Holness administration in dealing with our debt situation, in making sure we bring down inflation, making sure that capital comes into the country, that the economy is a good place to invest in. Because of that, the international community of financial investors said, Jamaica, we see what you're going through. Here is a package. Here's an envelope of $6.7 billion. Let me tell you something. Not many countries in the world can get that unless you're in the oil-producing business or you're right there up #1 with Singapore and those kind of countries. So give the Prime Minister and his team a round of applause for attracting that kind of envelope to Jamaica. And 2.4 billion of that is to be done with private investors. I've heard little mumblings elsewhere about, well, how is Jamaica going to deploy that money? Tell you a story. In April 2022, I visited the Pen Relays with the Prime Minister. Part of what happened with our now deceased, really outstanding Consul General in New York is Mrs. Alcyon Roach arranged for us to have some sideline business meetings of the Pen Relays. One of them was a very high-powered set of prospective investors and money managers. Of course, we were relatively new, so I took the chance to explain to them the quality of the cabinet Prime Minister Andrew Holness had put together. When the Prime Minister was finished speaking, they were pleasantly surprised and equally impressed at what then, little younger, not much younger, Prime Minister was able to do in a relatively short time after coming to power. Why am I telling you that? Because it's the same dedication, the same discipline, but a lot more experience of running a country well that we bring to the post-Melissa environment, where we have gone through the pandemic. We spent over $100 billion that we didn't plan to spend. Pandemic didn't give you any notice. We've gone through hurricanes and storms, other climate events, and here we are with the Prime Minister, still the man to take us forward. So I'm not concerned that the 6.7 billion US dollars will be spent well, and the 2.4 will find places for deployment. But financial institutions must actively encourage their clients to take on bigger responsibilities. You hear Beresford do it today. His investors are behind him. You must take on bigger responsibilities to build the engineers, technology, and management capacity necessary to execute large projects here in Jamaica. To use that experience to expand across Latin America and the Caribbean, just as other nations, companies do in our country and the region. We must be able to build the kind of buildings here with the kind of resilience, now that we have to incorporate that after Melissa, that other countries invite our builders, just like we have had to invite other builders from other countries when we didn't have the capacity. We must build that capacity, and you, Beresford, must finance it. Our Class 1 contractors must form consortia of, say, 3 or 4 of you together. Come together. Make sure you build a place that you can stand up and say, look, we can do EPC contracts and we have the capacity to do it. And you form partnerships. Sometimes you can't get ahead without partnerships. Form partnerships and make sure, as Beresford said, he wants Jamaica to lead in the logistics hub business. Well, who's going to build it? We must build it. We must get help from outside, as we do now, but we must build our own systems and businesses to take on those events overseas. Guyana has tons of money that they're going to have to invest. Yes, they're going to do the traditional investment, but we want Jamaica to be an investment destination for Guyanese money. Trinidad is always looking to look elsewhere. They're going to continue to look to Jamaica because we must be leading that charge as the economic developers in the Caribbean. And so the agencies under the ministry will continue to build. I want to see, even as I challenge the financial institutions to build their institutions, that our independent central bank continue to be prudent, become flexible, make sure the playing field is even for everybody, and therefore we can get our businesses ready and stronger to build Jamaica into the future and help build other countries. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here this morning. Congrats to Beresford and Sygnus and all the investors to it. I wish you God's blessing. Thank you very much.
As I sat and listened to the presentations, I was reflecting on the damage caused by Hurricane Melissa. It might be of worth to note that since 1960, there have been 22 Category 5 hurricanes since 1960. Thirteen of those hurricanes occurred within the last decade. 60% of all Category 5 hurricanes since 1960 occurred within the last 10 years. Meaning, during my administrations. "12 hurricanes have made, that is 12 Category 5 hurricanes, have made landfall since 1960. Most of these hurricanes would have made landfall within the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico. Some people know it as the Gulf of America. it's a good place to kind of ground the audience and to capture your attention. That we are indeed living in a time where the climate is an important consideration for business decisions. Indeed, climate is an important consideration for any economic activity. Climate is important to the economy. And as a government, particularly a government of a country that is susceptible to climate events, we exist in a corridor where hurricanes, and indeed we are also on a fault line. So we will have shocks, exogenous shocks, that will have what is best described as a balance sheet impact. Things will happen beyond our control that will impact our balance sheet. Either it will destroy assets or we will lose revenues, impact our reserves, or cause us to increase our debt. So anything that we do as a people, as a society, as a community, as an economy, we must mainstream, systemize climate considerations. I am not here joining the debate regarding whether or not climate change is man-made or it's natural. Much of this is academic to us. The point of fact is that we are seeing climate events, particularly hurricanes, of greater intensity, with greater frequency, and oftentimes overlapping. That's our reality. So you need a government that appreciates this fact and can make policy to ensure that our country, our society, and our people are able to withstand this developing phenomenon of our existence. And the best way to describe this is resilience building. This administration has focused heavily on resilience building. But resilience is not a word in the political vernacular. Governments get no credit for building resilience. Nobody goes to the polling station and say, I am going to vote for the government that put resilience in our fiscal arrangements. Nobody votes for the government that ensures that we put in place the financial arrangements to withstand climate shocks, to recover and recover better, build forward, and build stronger. That's not a consideration. However, my firm belief is that after Beryl and then Melissa, more and more Jamaicans are beginning to pay attention to this conversation about the impacts of climate change and what it means for our survival as a small island developing state. You see, the realities for larger countries that are also impacted by climate events is that if Hurricane Katrina struck Mississippi, New Orleans, the impact on the American economy would probably be 1 or 2%. maybe let's say 3%, 4%. The impact on the Jamaican economy would be double digits, as we have seen with the impact of Hurricane Melissa. So the point I'm making here is that every citizen, every Jamaican must now become aware about the impact of climate. And it must become part of our political economy, meaning the things that we vote for. Because it is important, like all the other things we consider politically important, wages, security, health, education, it is just as important, if not more. We heard some terms used from this podium, one of which would be the continuity of government or the continuity of business. For small island developing states, these weather events pose a real threat to the continuity of government and the continuity of business. One event could knock out the capability of government to respond, to stand up, get relief and assistance to those in need. It could knock out, if not totally destroy, the ability of businesses to recover and start again. One weather event could end a business totally. And we have seen this in Melissa. Many local governments were totally knocked down. They could not stand up and respond. And indeed, as a result of Melissa, many businesses will end. They will not be able to restart. So for the average person seeing the hurricane and say, oh, it's wind and rain, and it took off my roof, that's just a part of it. The impact of these high intensity, high risk events is that it could end life as we know it. And I don't mean to sound as if I'm trying to create fear or being dramatic. This is the new reality. Thankfully, your administration has been preaching this for a very long time. If you go back at all my presentations, I have been speaking about resilience and building resilience and ensuring that we have continuity of government. Brigadier, you were there when we raised those issues, when we asked the Disaster Risk Management Council to prepare a continuity of business plan. But the most important thing that we have done is to build resilience in the country's financing. And how did we do this? One, we controlled our borrowing. Reducing the debt to GDP ratio ensured that when we really needed to borrow, we could get access to funding. But more than that, we could get access to funding at the best rates because we established ourselves as good managers of resources and lower risk. The second thing we did is that we had a scheme of preparing for disasters. And essentially, it's a straightforward scheme. There are two kinds of disasters that will happen. You have high frequency, low intensity events. You can expect that every year we're going to have a rainy season. Every year there is going to be flooding. We may be impacted up to the level of a tropical storm. We prepare for that. Every year we know we're going to have droughts, and so we have to provide for that. And how do we provide for that? Well, for the first time in decades, we established and funded the National Disaster Fund. So every year we set aside for that. So in effect, you can say we put aside savings for that. If your economy isn't doing well, you can't save for disasters. So we set aside savings out of our revenues. The second thing we did is that we set aside a contingency. And we have that contingency, which is where we have been spending from in the initial response to the hurricane, almost about $5 billion, meaning we set aside from cash flow. Savings and cash flow, we target that to low intensity, high frequency events. Events that are high intensity, low frequency. And for that, we use insurance. Like the CRIF, the Caribbean Reinsurance Fund that is there. And for really high intensity, low frequency events, we have the catastrophe bond. So you see how we have structured our financing. We have, in other words, we have crafted our economy to incorporate the risk of climate damage. Nobody gives credit to the government for that. But it has served us through all the tropical storms, through all the floods, through all the droughts. We didn't have to borrow a cent. And it served us well during COVID. And during COVID, we went through our contingencies and we went through our disaster fund, but we ended up having to borrow. But we were able to get the kind of borrowing that was not stressful on our economy. And so a part of the strategy of dealing with these disasters is to also have contingency borrowing, meaning that should a disaster occur, we get access rapidly to pre-arranged debt. You can't get access to that unless you have established that you are a good, well-managed economy. And so we have put in all of these measures to ensure that if we were hit by the worst event, and by the way, Hurricane Melissa is one of the 3 strongest hurricanes to have impacted anywhere in the world. I believe the strongest would have been in the Pacific. Hurricane Melissa would be the 2nd strongest in the Atlantic. So it's in the top 3. So, you know, there's a lot of discussion about the government's response and all the other issues that you hear. The fundamental is that Jamaica was struck by one of the strongest hurricane, causing some of the worst ever damage in Jamaica's history. And we are certain as to where the recovery and reconstruction will come from and how it will be funded. That is a massive achievement for a small island developing state. Jamaica was considered the case study of debt reduction Now we are going to be considered the case study of reconstruction and resilience building after a disaster. So I wanted to put this groundbreaking in context. And we give God thanks that though we were struck by the worst hurricane to have hit us, most devastating, we can stand here today and say that business continues. Sygnus is breaking ground on a 55-acre property to develop a logistics operation that will add value and dimension to Jamaica's logistics aspirations. Business continues in Jamaica. Having made that point, the reconstruction effort cannot be limited to the parishes and communities affected. So the notion is not merely about building back what was damaged or what was there. The hurricane is a message to us that there are areas of weakness in our infrastructure, in our social systems, in our society that we must address. And so the idea of mainstreaming resilience, not just in our financial management of the economy, but in the infrastructure across the country. Because God forbid that it were, let me not even put it in the atmosphere. Let's not, don't even say it. So when we are going to reconstruct Jamaica, we also must now look at the vulnerabilities that could have impacted the continuity of government, of central government, the continuity of businesses that could have dislocated critical infrastructure to maintain connectivity around the island. So the reconstruction effort will involve resilience building, which may not necessarily all be concentrated in the area of damage. We have to look at the drainage system in Kingston to avoid the potential of flooding in certain communities. We have to look at our electricity grid. What can be placed underground? What can be limited to microgrids? All of these are considerations. We have to now consider, as we had started, backup power for water production and distribution. Backup power for our police stations, which should have been, but wasn't. We have to consider where our hospitals are located. In Hurricane Melissa, 3 of our hospitals, all located on the coast, were impacted. We have to consider whether or not they should remain there. Both our airports are on the coast and at sea level or low. The ability for airlift became critical. We just don't have enough. So I'm giving you then a sense of the dimension of reconstruction. This will be done with incurring significant debt, without question. But debt is one side of the ledger. The other side of the ledger is that we must use these resources not for things that will not create value but we must use these resources to create significant value. Our GDP today is 20 billion US dollars. We will have access between what the government will directly use and what the private sector will use to about $6.7 billion. Let's use that in a synergetic way to add greater value to our GDP. Let us make the commitment that by 2030, coming out of this, our GDP could move from the 20 billion to maybe 25, even 30 billion dollars. That is the mentality and the thinking that all Jamaicans must embrace. This crisis of Melissa has given us the perfect opportunity to rapidly expand our economy, but in a way that gives us the resilience to withstand the next weather event that will come. And that is what I am concentrated on. Regardless of the noise, the lies, the negativity, it is the action of growth and development of our people that will show. We will rise again. We will rise stronger than before. We will build forward and we will create the Jamaica that we are destined as a people to enjoy. Companies like Sygnus will have a critical role to play in this. Check. Companies like Sygnus will have a critical role to play in this reconstruction and redevelopment. Sygnus would be described as a boutique, high-valued financial intermediary dealing in financial intermediation, bringing opportunity to the resources to make those opportunities come to life. So we need more financial intermediaries. We need more entrepreneurs. We need more people who understand how to mobilize capital. 90% of the time, it is not that Jamaica does not have capital. 90% of the time is that we don't have the entrepreneurs to develop the projects, to think at scale, to interface with government and regulations, to bring overseas support, to identify markets and play in world-class situations. Sygnus has proven that we have the talent here locally. We need to multiply the number of Sygnuses that are in our country. I throw out the challenge. Forgive me for using your platform to encourage greater competition. But I throw out the challenge. I want to see more young people coming in with more ideas, more energy into the economy. Government's role is not necessarily to do what Sygnus is doing. And I wish that was not our role. But the truth is that government does have a development and de-risking duty. And in the real estate area in which you operate, we have two entities that are tasked with this function. One is the Port Authority and the other is the UDC. And the Port Authority, just next door here, is developing another big project which was talked about for many decades now, which is the Caymanas Logistics Hub. That is going to be developed. Competition, so you need to get yours out of ground very quickly. And they have started. So both of you have started at the same time. And then there is the UDC that is developing a similar project called Raintree, just across the road, essentially. And they started a few months before you and are a little ahead of you. So there is going to be intense competition in this general area for development. But it's good, because what is going to happen very soon is that this corridor of the Mandela Highway, and we already have several logistics operations in this area, including a farm, along with the development of the Bernard Lodge new area. All of this area will become the logistics node that supports the port. Yes, and we are confident that we have made the right decisions about the approvals, supporting with the urban renewal tax break through the UDC, the development of the road. We will be rehabilitating the rail to get you straight into the port. All of these decisions are going to ensure that all of this area, the Caymanas area coming into Portmore, will be one very powerful logistics hub. And of course, when Portmore is named a parish, very soon, there will be even further support towards the development of this area in terms of logistics and technology. So today is a good day, and I want to commend again the developers, Sygnus and their partners, and I want to thank you for being such an engaged audience, and I hope that my message today was taken as it was intended, to raise awareness and to inspire action to build the Jamaica we want. Let us turn crisis into opportunity. Thank you very much.